I want to get out an oscilloscope. I'm just going to do one channel at a time. I'm going to turn on the scope, turn on channel 1. And I'm going to look at a cylinder that's not setting codes first. Because remember we had cylinder 1 and cylinder 2? And it looks like this is the front of the motor over here. So that should be 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm just looking at the voltage pattern on this. And depending on what kind of screen you guys are looking at, what I'm seeing here is I'm at 20 volts of division. So I'm at 13, 14 volts here. And I'm seeing the injector pulled to ground. And then when it shuts off, I get this dragon's tail over here, right? If that's 20 volts of division, there's 20, 40, that's almost 60 volts right there. Everybody good with that? That is not an open injector. I would agree with you. It is not an open injector. How about this one?
It's the same to me.
That looks the same to me too. Huh. How about cylinder 1 there? Ruh-roh.
Ruh-roh.
Why do you say that? Why do you say bad ground? William, you really need to get a mic and come back. We're going to have a lot of fun. And this is not picking. It's just our mental models. It's how we look at things.
William says pulls down and comes back up.
So for one thing, he's saying it's a bad ground.
Yeah, if you look at the
because if you
you
look at the base of it, it's not pulling all the way down to ground. Okay. So if it's a bad ground, could the injector still be okay? Yes or no? Could the injector still be okay on this circuit? Jesse, I agree. Absolutely could still be okay. And now here's the teaser. We know that for a reason. And if you know it because you've been taught it by rote, just memorize that, oh, if I have one with lower dragon's tail or a lower inductive kick on the end of it, then I've got a problem. That's great. But if you start to actually identify what is the cause of the problem. So in the first class, I actually asked a question the first week we did one of these, and I said, we're going to get into other rules and other laws. And Faraday's law is all about inducing voltage in a conductor. Okay? So if we build a magnetic field, or we have a magnetic field, and we either pass it by a conductor, either a single wire or more specifically a coil of wire, or we pass the coil of wire through the magnetic field, we are going to create voltage in that conductor. And so when we look at a fuel injector, we're actually running current through a coil of wire and building a magnetic field to pull that injector open. And that's all great. But when we turn that coil off, we get this kick. So why do we get that kick? And if you think about why we actually get that kick, then we have to start talking about Faraday. Now, Faraday basically is like this. There are three things that determine how much voltage we are going to create in a conductor. It is the size and quantity of the conductor. It is the strength of the magnetic field. But you notice I'm kind of creeping along here, and if you look at that needle on the top, it's barely moving. But you can see I'm trying to make a little bit of current across that bulb. The third thing that's needed is speed. So if I don't have speed, I don't produce as much voltage. So if you think about that, strength of the magnetic field. Well, when I turned on that fuel injector, and it didn't pull all the way to ground, it means that I'm not putting as much voltage across that injector, which means that the magnetic field is going to be weaker. And then when I turn it off and that magnetic field collapses, even though it collapsed quickly, it wasn't as strong, so it didn't produce as much of a kick. And that's some of the stuff we're going to get into next week, and why little tricks like this help us diagnose, and the little details, not only in waveforms, but the understanding of how those principles work in components on the car, will lead us to faster, more accurate diagnosis.